In the previous spoiler, it was revealed that after over 6,000 years of inheritance, Luo Feng finally succeeded in binding the Star Tower as its master. At that very moment, no one was more delighted than Sitting Mountain Guest, who had waited billions upon billions of years for this day. Ever since the Star Tower's creation, it had finally welcomed its true owner. The instant he sensed the successful recognition, Sitting Mountain Guest crossed vast stretches of time and space, descending into the Star Tower's central hall to quietly await Luo Feng's awakening. Nearly 10 years later, Luo Feng's soul had fully recovered. As he slowly opened his eyes, the familiar, gentle voice he heard was none other than that of Sitting Mountain Guest. As someone who had once reached the God King level, Sitting Mountain Guest had been reborn through the reincarnation secret technique as the only unique lifeform within the original universe. His true form stood over 100,000 kilometers tall, towering like a cosmic giant, hence his title among all races, Sitting Mountain Guest. Because he often sat silently atop a mountain in contemplation of the path to transcendence, that name became both his title and his legend. To converse with Luo Feng more easily, he compressed his form to 100,000th of its size, yet still stood over a kilometer tall. Even the natural aura he exuded was so immense that the original laws themselves seemed to retreat in deference. To Luo Feng, his presence was akin to that of a god descending upon the world. After a brief conversation, Luo Feng officially became the third and final disciple of Sitting Mountain Guest. The term final here did not refer to Luo Feng personally, but rather to the fact that he was the strongest being born from a life planet personally modified by Sitting Mountain Guest, the Earth, and the only one to succeed in claiming ownership of the Star Tower. In other words, should Luo Feng ever meet his demise, Sitting Mountain Guest would not resurrect him, but instead wait for the next qualified being to emerge from that same planet. Nevertheless, after observing Luo Feng across the ages, Sitting Mountain Guest had grown deeply appreciative of his temperament, character, and cultivation talent. If Luo Feng were ever to perish, he might very well make an exception and bring him back. Of course, as favored by the original universe, Luo Feng's true demise was almost impossible. That was why, although he had faced countless life and death crises, each time appearing on the brink of destruction, every peril ultimately became a blessing in disguise. As for why Luo Feng was chosen as the favored one of the original universe, that secret shall be revealed another time. From Sitting Mountain Guest, Luo Feng also learned that by becoming the master of the Star Tower, he had naturally become the leader of the Earth lineage. In fact, Sitting Mountain Guest already regarded Luo Feng's eventual rise to a stature rivaling that of Primal Chaos City leader as an inevitable destiny. It must be known that back during the early evolution of the original universe, Sitting Mountain Guest had meticulously planned the creation of both the Flame God lineage and the Earth lineage, even expending immense effort and over half his wealth to forge Arcana-grade treasures for their respective leaders. Among them, the Star Tower was unparalleled. Even if the entire human race combined all its resources, it would still be impossible to create a second one. Even more astonishing was the fact that during the forging of the Star Tower, an ultimate lifeform had intervened and altered its structure, making it so mysterious that even Sitting Mountain Guest himself could not fully comprehend its secrets. For this reason, although Luo Feng had already become the master of the Star Tower, he could not yet truly wield its power due to still being at the world master level. Sitting Mountain Guest therefore gave him a strict order: unless he reached the universe overlord realm, he was forbidden from taking the Star Tower away and must instead allow it to remain on the extraterritorial battlefield. After all, the Star Tower had stood motionless on the seventh battlefield for billions of years. If it were to suddenly vanish, it would undoubtedly send shockwaves throughout the entire universe. At that point, every king immortal within the tower's region would be seized by the higher authorities of their respective races, subjected to soul-searching investigations. One must understand that in the eyes of the great leaders of each race, a treasure of such grade could only be controlled by their strongest members. They were completely unaware that beings above the universe venerable level were fundamentally incapable of passing the Star Tower's inheritance trial. Since the Earth lineage was a race personally guided and nurtured by Sitting Mountain Guest, with the soul as its foundation, once Luo Feng advanced to the immortal level, even with the help of 9 Calamities' secret tome to elevate his life gene level, his soul would still surpass his body in strength. As the leader of the Earth lineage, Sitting Mountain Guest naturally could not allow such an imbalance between body and soul. Therefore, aside from the Star Tower, he had also specially prepared a Universe Master level Arcana armor for Luo Feng, the Calamity armor, to compensate for that gap and further strengthen his base strength power. The Calamity armor was ranked even higher in grade than a pair of Sure Wu wings, though its actual power was slightly inferior to what its level should have. This was because Sitting Mountain Guest had deliberately endowed it with the ability to generate offspring forms, sub-armor units categorized as Soldier Armor, General Armor, King Armor, and Emperor Armor. These armor beads could only be used by members of the Flame God race and Luo Feng himself. Since Luo Feng had cultivated the 9 Calamities secret tome, his body constitution followed the same evolutionary path as the Flame God race, though superior in quality, and as long as his base strength met the requirement, he could naturally use them with ease. This also explained why, despite countless eras of research, the Virtual Universe Company had never been able to uncover the secret method behind the King Armor's creation. However, as the core armor, the Calamity Armor, though of an exceptionally high grade, had extremely strict conditions for activation. Even with Luo Feng's body having been transformed far beyond ordinary limits through the 9 Calamities secret tome, he would still need to reach at least the immortal level before being able to truly unleash its power. For safety reasons, Sitting Mountain Guest temporarily entrusted the Calamity Armor to Flame Emperor for safekeeping. Yet what he did not foresee was that Flame Emperor, harboring resentment over matters concerning the 9 Calamities secret tome and the Star Tower, believed their master favored Luo Feng too much. Thus, when Luo Feng later requested the armor, Flame Emperor deliberately stalled and made things difficult, refusing to hand it over early. As a result, although the two were fellow disciples, the relationship between Luo Feng and Flame Emperor was far from harmonious. In contrast to Earthlings, whose souls were inherently strong but bodies comparatively weaker, the Flame God race was born with naturally powerful bodies yet rather ordinary souls. To compensate for this shortcoming, Sitting Mountain Guest personally forged an Arcana-grade treasure for the Flame God race's leader, the Original Soul. Like the Calamity Armor, the Original Soul also possessed the ability to produce offspring forms, capable of generating 4 different levels of soul beads. It is worth mentioning that while the armor beads could help the Flame God race build an unmatched close combat warrior legion, the soul beads could enable the Earth lineage to form a formidable soul-type army composed of spiritual controllers and illusion masters. However, the activation requirements for the soul beads were equally strict. If Luo Feng lacked the strength to protect the Earth lineage, recklessly nurturing Earthlings would only invite disaster. After all, each soul bead was nearly as valuable as a heavy-grade treasure. Even if Luo Feng truthfully declared that the soul beads could only fuse with Earthling souls, many would surely doubt his words, and under such immense temptation, there would inevitably be those who risked everything to seize them. In the vast universe, treasures that could directly enhance soul amplitude were exceedingly rare. Before Luo Feng broke through to the immortal level and his soul underwent a qualitative transformation, Sitting Mountain Guest instructed him to first take 2 general souls, fusing one with his golden horned beast body and the other with his human body. It must be noted that during the inheritance of the Star Tower, Luo Feng's willpower had already experienced a qualitative metamorphosis where his mental resilience had surpassed that of most universe venerables. Combined with the divine general inheritance, which granted him a spiritual energy amplitude of 3,200 times, fusing and unleashing the power of General Soul was effortless for him. After giving all necessary instructions and mentioning the locations of the remaining 3 metal plates containing the 9 Calamities secret tome, Sitting Mountain Guest personally guided Luo Feng on a tour through the interior of the Star Tower. One must understand, the Star Tower itself was 9 light-years tall, and at Luo Feng's current speed, even after thousands or tens of thousands of years, he might still be unable to explore it in its entirety. Yet, as a true God-level being, Sitting Mountain Guest was able to receive temporary deference from the will of the original universe, allowing the laws within a certain radius of his body to operate abnormally. As a result, even while traveling with Luo Feng at 50 times the speed of light within the tower, they were not forced into the dark universe, otherwise, Luo Feng would have seen nothing at all. After the tour, Sitting Mountain Guest left Luo Feng alone within the Star Tower and departed on his own. You might wonder, apart from the 9 Calamities secret tome, Sitting Mountain Guest seemed to have taught Luo Feng no other secret techniques. Meanwhile, both the Calamity Armor and the Star Tower were temporarily unusable. Wouldn't it seem absurd that a former god king of forging would allow his disciple, after over 6,000 years of inheritance, to gain no substantial increase in combat strength? Of course, Sitting Mountain Guest would never permit such a thing. For him, the essence of nurturing a disciple lay in the allocation of resources. Therefore, he specially crafted for Luo Feng a vast star scroll, capable of containing 100,000 sealed stars. In terms of classification, either the star scroll or the sealed stars alone would only be considered treasure grade. However, when the two were combined and pushed to their full potential, their overall power was enough to ascend into the Arcana-grade treasure level. What made them even more extraordinary was that, unlike typical spiritual weapons such as the Yenshin armament or beast god weapon, whose structures were permanently fixed by engraved secret runes to best suit their creator rather than their wielder. In contrast, the runes within the Star Scroll could shift freely in accordance with Luo Feng's strength and will, allowing real-time modification and optimization. This made it far more practical and versatile than conventional spiritual weapons. Furthermore, each sealed star was as massive as an actual planet and forged from at least grade G materials. Its sheer impact power alone was enough to overwhelm countless king immortals. When further empowered by Luo Feng's willpower and the surge of spiritual energy born from his fusion with the General Soul, his combat power as a spiritual master was no weaker than that of a limit king immortal, easily capable of suppressing them. It could truly be said to be his most formidable core strength at present. In addition, the towered bead that had merged with Luo Feng's soul during the inheritance was itself a defensive Arcana-grade treasure. With it guarding his soul, even when faced with a universe master's spiritual assault, Luo Feng could still retain a sliver of consciousness enough to trigger self-detonation if needed. As long as one of his clones, carrying a core, remained hidden somewhere safe, no one could truly annihilate him. After all, the internal world of his golden-horned beast was vast and brimming with world energy which ample enough for him to reconstruct a new body within moments. Following Sitting Mountain Guest's advice and his own judgment, Luo Feng first collected 100 sealed stars into the Star Scroll, engraving upon them the secret runes of Heaven-Tearing Claw. When he tested their might, the unleashed power of the Star Scroll left him deeply delighted. After putting everything in order, Luo Feng finally calmed his mind and reconnected to the virtual universe. Previously, he hadn't dared to multitask during his conversation with Sitting Mountain Guest. After all, that man was not only the founder of the Earth lineage, but without him, Earth itself would not exist. Moreover, given that his strength rivaled even that of the founder of Hugh Jack's dojo, yet he willingly accepted Luo Feng as his disciple, Luo Feng naturally dared not show the slightest distraction. However, when he successfully logged into the virtual universe, the sight before him left him stunned. Among the tens of thousands of unread messages, over 99% were from Su Xian, filling his heart with guilt. After all, he had never expected that the inheritance process of bonding with the weapon would last over 6,000 years. He had written a farewell message without much thought, which he never expected would cause his family nearly a century of. As soon as Luo Feng entered the virtual universe, he saw Luo Ping's weary face where his expression haggard and dispirited. Little did he know that at this very moment, the Luo family was facing an unprecedented crisis. As the primary managers of the family, Su Xian and Luo Ping were under unimaginable pressure. After all, the Luo family had flourished for tens of thousands of years, its descendants numbering in the countless millions which could spread across more than 10,000 life planets. A single misstep in their dealings with the major powers could spell total catastrophe for their kin. Worse still, Luo Feng's disappearance for several millennia had stirred turbulent undercurrents throughout the universe. As the core world master of the primordial void space and direct disciple of Primal Chaos City leader, his absence from the training grounds for thousands of years naturally led to rampant speculation and rumor. Once the outside world began to suspect that Luo Feng had met his demise, the Luo family, which seen as a juicy prize, would inevitably draw the covetous eyes of countless powers seeking to carve it up. Meanwhile, spies planted by hostile races seized the opportunity to fan the flames, thrusting the Luo family into the eye of the storm. One major power's patriarch, after failing to contact Luo Feng, even went so far as to turn a blind eye while his clan used their influence to oppress the Luo family. Already burdened with guilt toward Su Xian, Luo Feng erupted in fury the instant he learned she had been humiliated by forces from another universe country. Without hesitation, he burst straight into their council hall, abruptly halting the meeting. His voice was cold as ice as he declared that the opposing patriarch must give him a satisfactory explanation, otherwise, he swore to erase their entire clan from the long river of history. After all, that patriarch was merely a low-tier king immortal where killing him would be as easy as crushing an ant for Luo Feng. Even his master, a universe country lord, would not dare offend Luo Feng over the death of a mere disciple. One must understand, the ruler of a typical universe country was, at best, on par with Venerable Nine Swords, utterly powerless before a universe overlord. Luo Feng's senior brothers, such as Venerable Gui Yi, could annihilate a universe country lord effortlessly. Thus, under Luo Feng's overwhelming pressure, the patriarch had no choice but to surrender 99% of his clan's assets, hand over all those involved to the Luo family for punishment, and even pay a massive compensation fee. Though the punishment seemed severe, it served as a powerful deterrent which proved that bullying the Luo family came with an unbearable cost. After enduring centuries of strain, Su Xian finally saw Luo Feng return safe and sound. In that moment, the weight crushing her heart lifted completely. She wished time could stop, just so she could stay quietly in Luo Feng's arms forever. Before reuniting with his family for a long-awaited home gathering, Luo Feng naturally had to first pay a visit to Primal Chaos City Leader. After all, the city leader had summoned him urgently twice before. It was only because Luo Feng's heart was set on easing his family's worries that he chose to see them first. Upon meeting again after so many years, Primal Chaos City Leader immediately sensed that Luo Feng's consciousness and willpower had both undergone tremendous growth, and that he had even gained recognition from the original law of space. In terms of his comprehension of the original law of space, Luo Feng was now roughly equivalent to the 18th level of the Heavenly Bridge, or the realm of a low-tier king immortal. However, his millennia of focused cultivation in the Beast God path had pushed his mastery of the fusion law of metal and space to the 20th level of the Heavenly Bridge, equivalent to a peak king immortal in strength. Upon learning this, the Primal Chaos City Leader even suggested that Luo Feng attempt to challenge the World Master level Heavenly Mountain, which was a feat that, if accomplished, would instantly establish his prestige. After all, as a direct disciple of Primal Chaos City Leader, remaining too low profile for too long could easily invite doubts and provocations from within the human race itself. Showing a proper amount of strength would not only affirm his name, but also deter potential rivals. Furthermore, so as not to make Luo Feng feel pressured, Primal Chaos City Leader gently and indirectly inquired about his use of the Flame God race battle armor in combat. Luo Feng explained that after fusing 10 Blood River crystals, he had become a black warrior, which allowed him to naturally unleash the power of the general armor, thereby dispelling the city leader's concerns. Upon learning that Luo Feng had attained the rank of Black Warrior, Primal Chaos City Leader couldn't hide his delight, which clearly valuing this achievement even more than Luo Feng's progress in the laws. After all, in terms of law comprehension, Luo Feng was indeed formidable, but still slightly inferior to figures like Venerable Fire Erosion and Kudi in their prime. Even so, with Luo Feng's current mastery of the fusion law, it was only a matter of time before he fully grasped the original law of metal. For this reason, Primal Chaos City Leader earnestly urged Luo Feng to advance to the immortal level as soon as possible. However, will Luo Feng follow the city leader's advice and immediately break through to become immortal, or will he choose to continue tempering himself through further trials? Stay tuned for the next spoiler, where I will reveal the answer. Well, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching this video. Wish you a wonderful day.